Hey there, so I chose the online learning for the beginning, when, and how portion of the learner profile, when and how. And so I just wanted to reflect a little on some of the things that I saw in that video. Of course, that was a student's perspective on personalized learning. And I just want to talk a little bit about how I see this playing out in my classroom and how I believe that it relates to these learner profiles. So first of all, I'm kind of just looking at this template that I see here. I'm going to be glancing down because I'm going to try to make sure that I hit on all points. But I also want to talk naturally as well. So anyways, so as far as how students are currently accessing information in my classroom, so I try to use a variety of different approaches for how students are able to access information, and I really have done a lot of voice and choice this year. So a lot of times students will have the option of, just like we had in this module, watching a video, reading books, doing their own research. These are very common ways that I have students accessing information in my class. As far as their level of engagement goes, or the way in which they engage with that information, that also has been something that has been very much differentiated within this environment. And I think that that in itself is something that I've kind of had to do a lot of reflecting on throughout the year, because one of the things that I notice about my classroom as opposed to many other classrooms, particularly at the grade level in which I teach, is that my classroom very rarely is quiet. Talking is the norm in here. Unless students are taking a test or they are engaging in silent reading, really a lot of that time is spent in collaboration. Students will take, you'll have that quiet time where they'll be reading or they'll be watching something and engaging in it that way. But then there's always that sharing piece where kids are able to talk about their learning. And I think that that's really important. And I think that one of the things that kind of contributes to the way that students are currently expressing what they've learned in the classroom is that level of comfort that they have. I think that probably one of the greatest values that I have within the classroom is that emphasis on social emotional development. And I think that it's very important that students feel that they're in an environment in which they're safe to express themselves in a way that they are naturally showing what it is that they have learned. So my learner profile assessment, there were a lot of things that I gained from that. And definitely from an instructional standpoint, I was able to find out who in my classroom preferred, quiet learning space, who could focus even amidst sort of that organized chaos that we have going on in here, who needed to sort of disengage just a bit in order to engage for themselves in the learning process, who needed additional support one-on-one, who felt comfortable being a self-motivated learner. And so those were some things that I definitely was able to gauge from the learner profile. But in addition to that, and I think almost more important than that, is that in this time around, I actually added some pieces to my learner profile that gave me some insights on some of the environmental factors that my students are facing outside of the classroom, because I think so often we forget what it is that happens outside of the classroom is exactly what students bring into the classroom, and I think that that really greatly impacts their needs. So if you have a student, for example, who is spending 4 to 5 days out of school in outside of school activities, and then are coming into the classroom, they may not be coming in here having done a lot of homework or at-home practice. They may not be coming in here feeling like they're super wide awake right off the bat, and so they may need a little bit of extra support in order to be successful. I think similarly to that is the fact that I added a question in there about the support that students receive at home from their parents in regards to the homework process. And so I think with that as well, students who come to us with minimal support at home, you kind of have two different groups there. You have your groups that are extremely self-motivated and they're able to really be the leaders and to push themselves within the home environment as well as the classroom environment. And then you have those kids who kind of start to, fall through the cracks because they are not getting that support outside of school, and so they need that additional support from us within the classroom. So I think that in itself helps me to design instruction for my students as well. So the different changes that I hope to make in my classroom in regards to what I've learned through my learner profile and the resources that we've used here, I think I love the way that my class is set up, but I think that sometimes, because we do a lot of flex seating, it's like I said, there's kind of that organized chaos, but I think that sometimes, regardless of how old they are, a lot of times students may say what they would like and not necessarily what they need. And so I think it's kind of being able to flush out what a student's needs are, because, like, for example, I have one student in particular that comes to mind who's extremely kinesthetic, very, very active, needs to be moving really at all times, but that child doesn't necessarily benefit from being given lots of different choices, because they have a very difficult time honing in on what exactly it is that they ought to do first, second, third, fourth, and being able to organize themselves. So I think for us being able to be mindful of what a student needs versus what they want, and being able to sort of mesh the two together, I think for me that's a huge takeaway, because that's something, an area that I would like to grow in as I continue to dig deeper into getting to know my students, being able to meet their needs, being able to personalize my instruction for them, and see them make great gains and find their personal successes in the classroom.